Welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio, where we bring you conversations with the top business minds on Long Island and around the nation every week. Featuring expert consultants and small business owners who have found success but are also willing to share their top tips, failures, and give gritty, matter-of-fact advice based on their firsthand experience. Now, let's get down to business on Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hello and welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio. My name is Ray Schwetz, AVP of Business Banking at Jovia Financial Credit Union. We're focused on being the premier resource for business and entrepreneurship. We bring you weekly advice, tips, tools, and services that help you grow your business. Plus, we interview the top business and community leaders in the industry. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with a very good friend of mine, Paige Carbone. She is the Regional Executive Director of MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Now, the mission of Mothers Against Drunk Driving is to end drunk driving, to help fight drugged driving, support the victims of violent crimes, and prevent underage drinking. In her role as the Regional Executive Director, Paige develops, manages, and implements initiatives for MAD's core programs and services and promotes the mission of MAD in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, overseeing victim services, development, and community education and prevention programs. So that's an awful lot. Welcome to the show, Paige.
Thanks so much for having me, Ray. Good to see you.
I'm so happy to see you. So happy to have you on the show. Now, you have years as a nonprofit leader, as experience there, and I want you to take us to kind of the beginning of that journey. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in working with nonprofits like this.
Sure. I kind of fell into the role of nonprofits. Really believe that it's through people and connections that we can grow as professionals. And so I started working in nonprofits in 2019 after working for about 18 years in higher education. And it was just through a friend that I got connected with a local nonprofit here on Long Island, and took a role working as director of development and sort of, working in community education, developing relationships and doing development with grants and fundraising, and then got into the community education realm as well for that nonprofit. So I've been in this nonprofit world since 2019, and, I was just speaking to a friend and she said, in nonprofits, we do good. And I was like, yep, we do good. So really enjoying my work doing good for the world of nonprofits.
Yes, I think you can put your head down on your pillow and you're doing good things all day. That is a wonderful thing, and it's a God-given gift to be able to do so. Now, when we first met, you told me a little bit about MAD, and honestly, I was a little surprised just because I was familiar with the work of MAD, for me as a kid in high school, because obviously then I was part of those programs, so I got to see that happening. And I've heard less about MAD more recently, so when we met, I was surprised to see that MAD was still so active. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and how that's kind of bringing MAD back into the public headspace, I guess, is the best way to put it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So same for me. I remember seeing a crashed up car back in the 80s when I was in the back seat of my mom's car with the big sign on the front that said, this didn't need to happen, and Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And that kind of stayed with me all these years. But truth be told, I really didn't know that MAD was still around. I hadn't heard about them in a while. So one of the things we are working on is, our community engagement. We work with schools, we work with communities, and we work with people of all different ages, starting with our Power of Me programs, which speak directly to 4th and 5th grade students, talking about making safe decisions and what that looks like for children at that young age. We then go into our Power of Youth programs with middle school students and high school students. And then we also have a Power of Parents programs, which talk to parents about underage drinking, getting them on board with the support of being against underage drinking and what that looks like in this space. So I think you're going to see a lot more of MAD these days. We are really focused on community connections and engagement. We are a national organization happen, but we have a lot of development at the grassroots level here in New York and particularly on Long Island. And then my region focuses on New Jersey and Pennsylvania as well. So we work as a really good team to not just help our victims, but also to really connect with people in the community and talk about our mission, which is to end drunk driving.
And I think that's so important because I know kids more, nowadays they seem to be more socially responsible, at least than I was when I was a kid and my generation.
We've been hearing that actually, that this generation is the generation that grew up using Uber and Lyft, and they make those responsible decisions if they are going to drink. And we were working with a high school on Long Island a couple of weeks ago doing some advocacy work, and one of the young students who was in an AP government class, she said, "We are the generation that wants to put an end to drunk driving." And I was so inspired by what she was saying. And so I agree with you there.
I think that's really awesome. I will say, though, that it is your services and that awareness is still so necessary because even despite that level of social responsibility amongst this generation, what I see and smell when I come to New York, it's crazy.
Oh,
Meaning,
yeah.
If I'm traveling out of state, the second I hit New York, you immediately smell marijuana.
Yep.
And it seems to be so prevalent. And I get it, but it seems to me that at some point people are going to need to kind of control things and certainly not be driving while under the influence of drugs.
We recently introduced a new program that is piloting this spring, particularly around prom time. It's called Promposal, and this program will allow us to utilize goggles that students in 11th and 12th grade can participate in if they'd like to put these goggles on to show the difference of being impaired on cannabis versus being impaired by alcohol. And so we'll be reaching out to schools. If schools are interested, they can certainly get in touch with us for a promposal presentation. As I said, it's specifically for 11th and 12th graders, and they get the opportunity to use these goggles and feel what it would be like to be impaired by cannabis at different levels and really try to hone in on that message of impaired driving is impaired driving and it is dangerous. Dangerous driving is dangerous driving. And so really trying to get that message and drive it home with students.
Yes, and I think there's and I'd like to draw out a little bit more about the scope of some of MAD's programs because I know certainly it's more than drunk driving, it's even more than cannabis. And when we talked, I remember you mentioned it's almost Mothers Against Destructive Decisions. That would be the same moniker and it would fit. So can you tell us about some of the other things that MAD is doing in addition to drugs and alcohol and education around that?
Yeah. So at the heart of what we do is provide victim care. So when we refer to victims, we mean someone who has been impaired by drugs or alcohol in their life. And the statistic, I'm not really a numbers person, Ray, like you at the bank, but the number is now 2 out of every 3 people will be impaired in some way, shape, or form in their lifetime. And that's just an astounding number. But at the heart of what we do is provide services for victims. So someone who has been affected, who has lost a loved one. And, we see it far too often here on Long Island. And so we have just a tremendous victim services team, and they do such a fantastic job of being able to meet people where they are at in their grief journey and walk with them and provide resources, whether that be filling out an application to get funding from the government to help pay for lost wages or help pay for funeral costs or medical costs that were incurred due to, a drunk driving crash. And just to point out, we don't call them drunk driving accidents because they are not accidental. They are 100% preventable. And so we call them crashes. And so in addition to being a resource for our victims and survivors, we are a resource for their family. We provide, information for them and connections for them, whether they need an attorney. Do they need mental health and therapy services? Do they need to be walked through, which many people do, the court case? They have no idea what to expect when they get into the court. And this is all part of their grief journey. And so we like to say at MAD, we meet them where they are at in their grief journey. We have so many fantastic victim volunteers who then become advocates and want to speak and advocate and be activists for stricter laws in New York State. We're working on 4 bills right now in the state of New York for stricter drunk driving laws and stricter drug driving laws. And so for people in their journey to then say, okay, I'm thankful for what MAD provided me, and now I want to be a voice for those who no longer have a voice. I want to put my pain to purpose. And it's just so beautiful to see that there are people that want to give back in that way. And really, it sort of honors their loved one. They're never forgotten, but it honors them. And for them, like I said, it's part of their grief journey. It's part of something that they feel they need to do. So they kind of go from this, victim who gets victim care and victim services and all these resources to, working on policy and advocacy and being an activist with us. And it's just, it's wonderful to see them being that voice.
You are listening to Tara Talk Business Radio on the voice of National Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ray Schwetz, and today's guest is Paige Carbone, and she is the Regional Executive Director of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Paige, one of the things that when you talk about the scope of the work that MAD is doing, I think it's so important because it really does bring home just the consequences of what can happen when you're driving under the influence. There's a lot of misconceptions that you can drive on drugs and actually you're more aware because marijuana makes me more aware. And there's all kinds of misconceptions. Mm-hmm. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that folks have about drunk driving or about MAD in general?
So I think one of the misconceptions that we hear often, and truth be told, I heard this when I was going through the interview process to be part of MAD. Mm-hmm. People would say, "Oh, so does that mean like you're not going to drink anymore because you work for MAD?" And I think that's what we like to make very clear, and we make this clear in many of our interviews and with people is we work to prevent underage drinking. So if people are of age and they are drinking responsibly, we have no issues with that. Right. It's when you don't do it in a responsible manner, when you partake in drinking alcohol and then get behind essentially a 5,000-pound weapon, which is your automobile. And so that's the biggest conception. We have seen things come out of, the governor's office and we've gotten many calls talking to us about how do you feel that they want to extend hours at liquor stores on Sundays? And how do you feel that they want to, allow to-go drinks like they started after, post-COVID. Sure. And so, again, MAD doesn't have a stand on that. As long as people are of age and they are drinking responsibly and are not getting behind the wheel, we don't like to say that we prohibit drinking. So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions people think about Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Yeah,
no, I could see that. That makes a lot of sense. Now, for educational purposes, I mean, there's still a lot of education that has to happen around this topic. What sort of, and you touched on it a little bit, the programs that you're doing within the schools and so forth. What other things are you doing to help spread the word about the work that MAD is doing?
So community engagement is a huge piece for us. We like to be out and about whenever we can, whether it's a wellness fair or whether it's a community event. We have such a great group of volunteers that help us do these type of things, and we'll table and give out information and educate people and, give out little giveaways and such, things for your car that say, I support MAD and I don't drink and drive and different things like that. We have also, partner with different sports organizations, whether it's, on a bigger level, like our new partnership with the NFL, or if it's right here on Long Island. So for example, we are setting up a give back game. This is an opportunity with the New York Islanders, actually, where a certain portion of their ticket sales for a particular particular date and time, a date and time of their game goes back to Mothers Against Drunk Driving. So there are little ways, and there are so many little things that people and businesses are doing. Companies will sponsor a dress down day, and will, people will pay a certain amount of money, $5, $10, whatever it is, and they'll collect for MAD. We've seen this with, many organizations that with food insecurity, especially. And most recently, we were talking, about those type of things that people who experience, who are in drunken, experience a loss through drunk driving, sometimes we don't think that they could lose the breadwinner of their family. And so, as we talk about the different services that MAD provides with our victim services, that could be one of the things that we do to connect them with an organization that will, put food on the table should they need it. We don't necessarily always think, bigger picture and larger scope, that this is really affecting families right here and every day. Our numbers and our statistics are they're going in the wrong direction, and people are dying on our roads all the time. We literally put ourselves at risk every time we get behind the wheel. So anything we can do to be in the community, to spread the message and to spread the word, anytime we can partner with an organization to really help get that message out there, we love to do it.
And I think that is so needed, because that's the last thing we want, is those statistics to be going in the direction that they're going. Now, what organizations, if I gave you a wish list, what organizations would you say, I'd really love to work with them? Or what industries? You mentioned sports, for example, so I had a few ideas. So I want our listener to be able to say, I know them, and maybe reach out to you and make a connection. So what's your wish list here?
So I'm glad you asked that, because this goes back to the question you said about some of the misconceptions. And, we want to partner with people in the hospitality industry. We want to talk about ways that we can connect and partner with them, because we don't look at it as Mothers Against Drunk Driving wants to harm that business and that industry in any way. We want to partner with them to continue to have people make safe choices. Uber is one of the biggest partners that we have across the nation, and even here in the New York area. Another industry that we look to partner with is the alcohol and cannabis industry. Especially with cannabis being legal in New York State, we want to talk about safe ways to really reduce drugged driving for people that partake in using cannabis. And the same thing with the alcohol industry. Beverage distributors, Anheuser-Busch is a huge partner of ours, and we're so grateful for their partnership. They have a campaign called Decide to Ride, where, if people go out and have a great evening and enjoy it by drinking, that's their choice, that they can get a voucher to have a ride home. And not only can they get a voucher to get a ride home from the bar, they can also get a voucher to get a ride a ride back the next day to pick up their vehicle. So it's creatively thinking about ways that we can really hone in on our message and our mission, but continue to partner. And so for me, the biggest industries are hospitality, restaurants. Here on Long Island, we have a connection to the East End and, tourism and Long Island wine country, the beverage industries, and also restaurants. Those are some of the big ones for me. But we don't want to forget about our sports industries as well. That's another big one, Ray. So we could certainly have a whole conversation of how people that are involved and work in that industry can partner with MAD to get our message out.
You're listening to Tara Talk Business Radio. Our guest today is Paige Carbone. She is the Regional Executive Director of MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. My name is Ray Schwetz on the voice of National Community College, 90.3 WHPC. So, Paige, tell us about some of the events and things that MAD is doing where folks can be involved.
One of our signature fundraising events is Walk Like Mad. And here in our region of New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, we host 7 walks. And this is a way for people and communities to come together and walk like mad, just like it says. We come together, we honor our victims and survivors at these events. This is a great way for people to come together and to really celebrate what it is we're trying to do and honor those families who have experienced loss. So we have an event, Walk Like Mad on Long Island, scheduled for the fall, and we would love to get different community members, different organizations, and different groups together to come and join us and walk like mad. And that's going to take place in September of 2024 at Jones Beach. And more information can be found online at walklikemad.org/Long Island. If people want to get involved, whether they are organizations through their schools, they can put together teams, work organization, businesses. There are varieties of levels where people can sponsor the walk, and it's a great way to come together and pay tribute to those who have lost their lives and also fight for a world of no more victims.
I love it. Now, there's also, so what other ways can folks get involved? Obviously, we're at Nash Community College, so I'm sure there's folks listening within the college that would love to be involved, and certainly folks outside of that area. How can business people get involved? How can the regular folks get involved?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a place for everyone at MAD, and that was told to me within my first week of starting to work at MAD, and I have seen it just grow and develop. So if people have a particular skill that they want to utilize, or they have a particular experience in an area that they want to bring to the table, they can volunteer. We're always looking for volunteers. We celebrate National Volunteer Month pretty much all year long with MAD, and we love our volunteers. They're at the heart of what we do, and they're responsible for sharing out our core messaging in the community. So whether it's tabling, whether it's going into school districts and sharing the message, whether it's joining us at the state capitol and advocating for stricter laws around drunk and impaired driving, again, there's a place for everyone at MAD.
I love it. And, it's definitely an organization that folks should consider being involved with, because the scope of it really touches so many of our lives in so many different ways. Can you share with us a story of the positive impact of some of the work that you've done within MAD? I'm sure there's lots of stories.
There are lots of stories, and for me, it has been such an honor and privilege, really, to connect with people who have either survived a drunk driving crash or are victims, have lost someone that they love. And I love just being able to connect with them on a personal level and to hear their stories. We share out the stories, particularly with lawmakers, because that really speaks to what we're advocating for. And so one of the stories is just about a woman who just driving her normal drive to work one day, and she was hit head on by someone who was drunk behind the wheel. And it was an off-duty law enforcement officer who saw the traffic and saw the smoke, and he got out of his car and he saved her life. He saved her life because 25 seconds after he pulled her out of this crushed vehicle, the car exploded.
Wow.
And she tells this story and gives such honor and thankfulness and gratefulness to the law enforcement officers who, as we know, EMTs and law enforcement are always the first ones on the scene. They're running into the danger. And her story is so inspiring to me. She has had 18 surgeries. She has been in physical therapy, and she continues to be on her path of healing. And she now is one of our featured speakers. We call them mission moments, and she has shared her story, and it's so touching. And so again, when we say that there's a place for everyone at MAD, There's a place for victims. There's a place for survivors. There's a place for people who have no connection to drinking and driving at all, but want to get involved and believe in the cause.
I love it. That's an amazing story, and it really does show the scope of things. I mean, you don't even think about it. The first responders and what they see and the impact of that is just incredible.
It's very inspiring, Ray, just to hear all that they go through as a survivor.
Now, what are the accomplishments you're most proud of within your work at MAD?
I would really have to say it's our advocacy work, working with lawmakers. We do this round the calendar year. Mm-hmm. You know, when we can be up in Albany and we can sit one-on-one and have those essential conversations with lawmakers and say to them, we want to partner with you. What questions do you have? What concerns do you have? What would keep you from not signing on to this bill? That helps us learn and that helps us grow. So if they need research and they need statistics, we don't always have that data on hand, but we can get it. Because as I said, we're a national organization, but on the grassroots and the local level, we can provide statistics, you know, down to, you know, how many lives were lost in New York due to drunk and impaired driving in 2022. How many lives were lost? You know, what percentage of increase? You know, unfortunately, have we seen in our state, and why? It highlights why the work is so important. And so, being able to be on a call with a victim, or be in the room with a victim, have them tell their story and have the lawmaker say to them, you know what? You have my support. I am signing on to this bill right now. It's so inspiring. It is so, it gives you such a sense of accomplishment. And so for me, working with our victims, hearing their stories, sharing their stories, and putting it forward to the people who really have a say and have a voice and can advocate for change. We need change, and the time is now, right? We need to be, working for change, and that's what we're doing at MAD.
Incredible and impactful and accomplishments to be proud of.
Thank you so much.
So, Paige, as we close, where can people get into contact with you? Please give us your full contact info.
People can visit our website at mad.org/NY, and there you can find out about what we're doing. If people are interested in volunteering, they can click on the volunteer tab right there and fill out information, and someone will get in touch with them. Again, that's mad.org/NY, and reach out to us. Like I said, there's a place for everyone at MAD, and we would love to hear people's story and love to get them involved.
Well, we want to thank you for being with us today, Paige. Thank you so much. We want to thank our guest, Paige Carbone, Regional Executive Director of MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Ray.
Want to leave you with DB's philosophy? Be the reason that someone gets home safely, not the cause of their tragedy. We want to thank you for being with us. My name is Ray Schwetz, along with Anisha Boston-Hill, your co-hosts and producers. Visit nccradio.org for more information. We are available on Odyssey, TuneIn, iHeartRadio as a podcast on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. This has been Power Talk Business Radio on the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.